Dear 12th class economic students, Assalamu alaikum. In this video lecture, we are going to discuss proportionate or percentage method of measuring price elasticity of supply. Dear students, before discussing proportionate method of measuring price elasticity of supply, let us first understand what price elasticity of supply means. Students, as we already know that the law of supply states that there is a direct or positive relationship between price and quantity supplied. That is, if price goes up, supply will increase and vice versa. It means that the law of supply indicates the direction of change in supply if price changes. That is, it only shows whether supply will increase or decrease with the change in price. But how much supply will rise in response to an increase in price, or how much supply falls in response to a decrease in price, it cannot be shown from the law of supply, which means that the law of supply only shows us the direction of change but not the degree of change. So, dear students, in order to quantify such changes in supply, we require the concept of elasticity of supply. Now, what is elasticity? Dear students, the elasticity of a good provides a measure of how sensitive one variable is to changes in another variable. In economics, elasticity is a summary measure of how the supply or demand of a particular good is influenced by changes in price. Thus, price elasticity of supply measures the degree of responsiveness of quantity supplied to a change in own price of the commodity. That is, it determines how sensitive the quantity supplied of a commodity is to the price of that good. Thus, with the help of elasticity of supply, we can establish a quantitative relationship between the supply of a commodity and its price. Hence, we can express the numerical changes in supply with the change in the price of a commodity. Dear students, there are two well-known methods of measuring elasticity of supply. Number first method is proportionate or percentage method of measuring elasticity of supply, which we will discuss in this lecture. And the number second method is geometric method of measuring price elasticity of supply, which is also known as point method of measuring price elasticity of supply, which we will discuss in our next lecture. Now coming to proportionate method of measuring price elasticity of supply. Dear students, this is the most popular method of measuring elasticity of supply. Under this method, elasticity of supply is measured by the ratio of proportionate or percentage change in quantity supplied to the proportionate or percentage change in price. It means elasticity of supply by using the proportionate method is defined as the percentage change in quantity supplied divided by the percentage change in price. Using this method, the price elasticity of supply can be calculated as ES, which is elasticity of supply, is equal to percentage change in quantity supplied divided by percentage change in price. Percentage change in quantity supplied is equal to change in supply divided by initial supply into 100, and percentage change in price is equal to change in price divided by initial price into 100. Thus, elasticity of supply is equal to change in supply divided by initial supply into 100 whole divided by change in price divided by initial price into 100. Symbolically, it will be written as Q1 minus Q divided by Q into 100 whole divided by P1 minus P divided by P into 100. Q1 here is new supply and Q is initial supply. Thus Q1 minus Q is change in supply divided by Q, that is initial supply, into 100 whole divided by P1 is new price, P is initial price. Thus P1 minus P is change in price. divided by P, which is initial price, into 100. It can be written as Q1 minus Q. We will write it as del Q. Del here signifies change. So Q1 minus Q is written as del Q divided by initial supply, which is Q, whole divided by P1 minus P, that is change in price, which is being written as del P. Del here signifies change divided by P, and 100 gets cancelled. So elasticity of supply is equal to del Q divided by Q whole divided by del P divided by P. We can also write it as del Q divided by Q into P divided by del P, or elasticity of supply is equal to del P divided by del Q divided by del P into P divided by Q. Del Q, that is change in quantity supplied, divided by del P, that is change in price, into P, that is initial price, divided by Q, that is initial quantity supplied. So the final formula for calculating elasticity of supply using the proportionate or percentage method is del Q divided by del P into P divided by Q. So dear students, since price and quantity supplied in usual cases move in the same direction, that is there is positive relationship between price and quantity supplied, the coefficient of elasticity of supply is positive, which may range from 0, which means perfectly inelastic, to infinite, which means perfectly elastic, which means that the value of elasticity of supply ranges between 0 to infinite. Dear students, for all the commodities, the value of elasticity of supply cannot be same. For some commodities, the value may be greater than 1 or less than 1. Its value can also be equal to 1 or equal to 0 or equal to infinite. Thus, there are 5 cases of elasticity of supply. First case is elasticity of supply is greater than 1. Dear students, when elasticity of supply is greater than 1, supply is said to be elastic. And in this case, a given percentage change in price leads to a larger percentage change in quantity supplied. That is, percentage change in quantity supplied is more than the percentage change in price. Under this situation, the numerical value of elasticity of supply will be greater than 1 but less than infinite. Elastic goods are usually viewed as luxurious items. Now coming to second case of price elasticity of supply, which is elasticity of supply is less than 1. So dear students, when elasticity of supply is less than 1, supply is said to be inelastic, and in this case a given percentage change in price leads to a smaller percentage change in quantity supplied. That is, percentage change in quantity supplied is less than the percentage change in price. Under this situation, the numerical value of elasticity of supply will be less than 1 but greater than 0. Dear students, inelastic goods are often described as necessities. Third case of elasticity of supply is elasticity of supply is equal to 1. Dear students, when percentage change in quantity supplied is exactly equal to the percentage change in price, the supply for such a commodity is said to be unitary elastic. In such a case, elasticity of supply is equal to 1. For example, if price rise by 10% and supply also extends by 10%, then change in quantity supplied is exactly equal to 1, or we can say elasticity of supply in this case is unitary elastic. And the fourth case of elasticity of supply is elasticity of supply is equal to 0. It means that supply is perfectly inelastic. In such a case, supply of a commodity does not change with the change in its price. Thus, an elasticity of 0 indicates that quantity supplied does not respond to a price change. This situation occurs when a good is fixed in supply. The supply curve in this case, that is when the elasticity of supply is equal to 0, the supply curve in this case is vertical to y-axis. And the fifth or last case of elasticity of supply is elasticity of supply is equal to infinite. It means supply is perfectly elastic. Students, when there is an infinite supply at a particular price and the supply becomes zero with a slight fall in price, then the supply of such a commodity is said to be perfectly elastic. The supply curve in this case is horizontal to x-axis. So these are the 5 cases of price elasticity of supply. First, elasticity of supply greater than 1 and it is known as elastic supply. Second, elasticity of supply less than 1, which means supply is inelastic. Third, elasticity of supply is equal to 1, which means supply is unitary elastic. Fourth, elasticity of supply is equal to 0, which means supply is perfectly inelastic. And the fifth, elasticity of supply is equal to infinite, which means supply is perfectly elastic. Now dear students, here in this slide is given an example of how to calculate elasticity of supply by using the percentage or proportionate method. Let us suppose that a producer offers to sell 400 units of a commodity when its price is rupees 10 per unit, while only 200 units are offered if the price reduces to 5 rupees 5 per unit. That is, when price of that commodity reduces from rupees 10 to rupees 5, quantity supplied of the commodity also decreases from 400 units to 200 units. And we have to find the elasticity of supply. That is, we have to find whether the elasticity of supply is greater than 1, less than 1, equal to 1, equal to 0, or equal to infinite. So how we can do it? First, write the formula of elasticity of supply, which is elasticity of supply is equal to del Q divided by del P into P divided by Q. Del Q, that is change in quantity supplied, which is equal to Q1 minus Q. Q1 is 200, that is the change in quantity supplied after the change in price, which is 200, and Q is the initial quantity supplied, which is 400. So 200 minus 400 is equal to minus 200. So del Q here is minus 200. Del P, which is equal to P1 minus P, that is new price minus initial price. New price here is 5 and initial price is 10. So it is 5 minus 10. 5 minus 10 is equal to minus 5. So del Q is minus 200. Del P is minus 5. P divided by Q. P is the initial price, which is 10, and Q is the initial quantity before the price change, which is 400. So substitute the values in formula. We will get del Q divided by del P, that is minus 200 divided by minus 5 into P divided by Q, which is 10 divided by 400. Minus and minus gets cancelled, so it will be 200 divided by 5 into 10 divided by 400, which is equal to 1. So elasticity of supply in case of this example is exactly equal to 1. That is, it is exactly, or that is the percentage change in quantity supplied is exactly equal to the percentage change in price. Thank you.